So as we said, we usually, the interaction is usually with those three different categories that we get. So we've got the atheist who is actively denying the existence of God. And then we have the agnostic. Agnostic is someone who say, I don't know. So they're not taking a firm position. They are kind of humbling themselves and saying, I don't know. / the relativist. So the relativist is someone who is willing to accept that Islam could be true and Christianity is true and Hinduism is true and Buddhism is true. Like everything got some truth in them, you know? So they don't want to say the truth. They don't want to say the truth. They are more willing to say there are multiple truths, you know? And Islam is a truth. And then Christianity is another truth, and so on, so on, so on. So this position is called relativism. And relativism, we're going to, you know, we already established why relativism is not intellectually and logically a plausible position. But we're going to, again, you know, like touch upon that so that we keep these sessions, you know, sort of put it in the context of like the da'wah and interacting with different people. And then we have the last type, which is a devout Christian, someone who thinks that Christianity is the truth. Okay. So let's start with, you know, those common thoughts. You've got the atheist. The atheist comes as a package. So if an atheist talks to you, you know that his ideology or his worldview, okay, dictates certain thoughts, okay, certain beliefs. So this has to be all coming together because they are all logical conclusions, okay, of that worldview of denying the existence of God, denying the existence of a superpower, of a supernatural supreme power, you know, that is outside this frame of like space and time. So we said like the only option they will have to explain existence is evolution. They don't have any other option. So they don't believe in evolution because they think that evolution is like something that has, you know, substance in it and it's like a valuable theory. No, they believe in it because they don't have any other option. Because if you don't believe in a supernatural, unseen, supreme power that created all this existence, you really got no other option except to believe in evolution. Okay? So again, this is a natural consequence, conclusion of adopting that view of there is no God. Also, by extending that, you know, sort of like worldview, you will not have any reason to believe that your life as a human has any better or higher value than the life of any other being, whether it's like a cat or a dog or a you know, or like a mosquito or whatever. Because if it's all just biological, you know, evolution of certain genes, okay, then what makes my life as Yusuf or your life or his life better than any other life in that world? You know, it is all equal. There is no really any value for human life over the other life. And the natural consequence of that is then there cannot be objective morality. There can't be a morality system. The morality system, the idea of saying you should or you should not, you ought or you ought not. Okay, once you put these two key words with, like, you say to someone, oh, you should not do this or you should do this, you have automatically adopted a moral position. You are saying, I'm saying you should and should not because this is morally right, and morally wrong. Okay, if there's everything in this life, there's nothing that has a better value over other thing. Okay, then the natural conclusion of that is that there can't be an objective morality. It's all subjective. It's all how you feel. It's all how you think. It is not. There is nothing outside me and you that defines right and wrong. It is just It's up to every person's interpretation. And by extending that line, basically what we say is like, you know, cooking your baby on a breakfast meal and eating him, okay, you cannot morally say that this is actually a wrong thing, okay? If it's actually, I could argue and saying, well, from evolution point of view, if, you know, like, I think it's something that going to help me to survive and exist. If that's the ultimate, you know, that's the ultimate goal, okay, is that we just want to survive. So the evolution and natural selection is all about the surviving genes, you know, like the genes that are more likely to survive, passing their attributes or features to their offspring, or, you know, their like descendants, okay, and that what helps them to continue this biological cycle, okay. So whatever helps, whatever works them, there is nothing, you can't tell me something is right, something is wrong. So this is another natural consequence of atheism. And you can imagine, you can just like go and start thinking about, once you remove that objective morality, what would be the world that we will live in? Of course, atheists will you know, will say things like, and again, sorry, maybe I'm like, you know, speaking here, you know, at length about this, but I think it's one of the topics that it is, you know, kind of feel like it's important, as important as Christianity, you know. And we may come back to this later and speak about it more in more details. But for now, just want to give you this, that it basically, when someone tells you he is an atheist, okay, their morality system, their moral, the definition of right and wrong is based on three things, three assumptions, or three pre-assumptions. They basically say that life is more preferable than death, okay? And health is more preferable than illness, and pleasure is more preferable than pain. This is the three main premises, okay, for atheism. And from that, then they will say anything that contributes to life, contributes to pleasure, contributes to health, it is good. And anything that does the opposite, it is bad. That's it. So if that's your metric, imagine it is basically, it's all becomes pragmatic. So whatever works, whatever keeps you here, you are happy to do, you should do it, actually. This is what, when it comes, the word should and should not for an atheist. Okay, so really, if you know what atheism, okay, implies and entails, okay, you will be talking to these people like you could destroy them quite easily. Like, you don't need to make any efforts to convince them. You could just ask them the wrong, like the hard questions, you know, and they won't be able to answer them. So what a Muslim would say in this scenario, they would say, okay, so if atheism, okay, that all entails all these points, is what you believe, that's the worldview, okay, and you believe that the universe existed through evolution, okay, we tell you, well, even if evolution is true, like, where does that first cell come from, you know? Can something come from nothing? Like, can this first cell come from nothing? There must be something before it, you know? And we say, like, this, you know, if you accept evolution as like a model, even though we spoke about it has many flaws and it doesn't answer questions, but, you know, we say, well, it can be eternal and it cannot create itself. So something must have created that, you know, even if you say it is the first cell, you know, if evolution. But we here talking about existence, you know, because as we said, evolution only speaks about biology, doesn't talk about physics, doesn't talk about the, you know, like the stars and the galaxies and the mountains and all of that. It just only speaks about living organisms. So we say, well, it must be then a higher power. Something have created that, and that is the definition of God, simply. So, and we know, because we know that the universe is regular and uniform and stable, okay, which are all signs of intelligence. So we ask them, what is the best explanation of that intelligence? If you see around you, the world is, the universe is intelligent. Some people will listen to that and it was like, pose and say, oh, well, I'm not sure. It's like, how you're not sure? How you not sure? You know nothing about science. Again, you can start throwing those evidences of how like the Earth is perfectly placed from a distance from the sun, and if had it been, like few meters closer, the Earth would have burned, and had it been, a few meters farther, the Earth planet would have been frozen, and then it is placed in that distance, okay, perfectly to allow life, and so many other things that we spoke about in previous sessions, like the six numbers, the universal physical constants, etc., etc. So when we say we can observe all of that, what is your explanation of that? Is it lack of intelligence, or is it intelligent designer? And then we say that the maker, whoever designed things, okay, he basically give it purpose. Whoever designs something, he gives it purpose. So the maker who designed this universe, he assigned purpose to it. Okay. So and it's very clear that the purpose that he created everything for is to give the effect of life, to allow life to exist. Okay. So what if someone said, well, I am polytheist. I believe in like Hinduism, or I believe in two gods, good and evil, like the Zoroastrianism, okay, which is the Persian, like the very famous Persian religion. Well, a Muslim would come and say, well, the stability and perfection of the universe mandates the oneness of the maker, because two or more equally powerful wills necessitates conflict. There has to be, if there is two or more equally powerful wills, they will have conflict. And the conflict means imperfection and instability. You can't think about a world around you where you have a very precise cycle of like the spinning of the earth around itself and around the sun and all the galaxies and all the ecosystem, and everything is there for a reason. And if it's taken out of the ecosystem, everything just crumbles, everything falls down, the whole environment, the whole climate change. Those people talk about climate change and talk about like the increase in the carbon dioxide emission by that percentage will make life impossible. Then you are actually saying, you're admitting there is a very finely tuned range to allow life to exist. And if that range, changed by the carbon dioxide emission, instead of being like 5% became 6%, or whatever the numbers are. I'm not like a subject matter expert, but that is what is basically the argument of those climate change activists. So if it's that precise, and if it's like get affected by this slight change, means it is stable. It is having a very finely tuned range to allow life to exist. Okay. And you can't think of like a universe where it is stable. Okay. And there are two forces that are opposing each other all the time. Why don't we see that around us? Why don't we see the signs of that continuous fight and conflict around us? When we look around us, we see a very stable universe. Okay. Things repeatedly happens every day, the same. We go through day and night. We go through winter. We go through the 4 seasons. We go through everything. The plants have to take the same cycle to grow. We can't do predictions about all things. We can't do science. We can't enter the laboratory and do science. Okay, because we know that whatever we discover today and do the experiment will be valid tomorrow. So if there was these two fighting gods, they might have changed that. And it's not stable. So, we wouldn't be able to do science. So this is what the arguments a Muslim would make, And this is, as we said, the dalil is dalil al-tamana, or the proof of contradiction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used in the Quran in Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 91. When he used that, verse, and he used it also in other verses, and we'll see how, to prove the oneness of God. He said this, that one of the important rational proofs of proving the oneness of God Almighty, okay, is that the existence of harmony and unity and consistency in the universe mandates one maker. And the second premises of this argument, or second proof, if the universe were ruled by more than one Lord, okay, the universe would have been subject to corruption, disorder, and defect because of these two, opposing forces. They would break something while they are, they literally, that's how it is. It's literally saying if they were in continuous fight, these two or more gods, and some god wanted to do something, but the other equally powerful god did not want that to happen, okay, then they would fight. And then that fight, we would see something that's getting broken, like it's like, oh, you made these oceans, okay, with all the creatures in these oceans. I'm going to destroy it for you. He is God as well, there is multiple gods. So why don't he do that? It is implausible, or it's unintelligent of you to think that this cannot happen and they can fight and still we can see everything around us is stable. So since we don't notice any imbalance or defect in this universe and the laws that govern it, we realize intuitively and necessarily that they all arise from one creator who created, managed, and organized everything. Okay? And the verses in the Quran that speaks about this are basically three main verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in Surah Al-Anbiya, verses 22, لو كان فيهما آلهة إلا الله لفسدت. Okay? If there has been more gods or other gods than Allah, it would have been corrupted. It would have been defected. Okay, there would have been disorder. And the verse in Surah Al-Mu'minun, ما اتخذ الله من ولد وما كان معه من إله إذا لذهب كل إله بما خلق ولعل بعضهم على بعض, which you've mentioned many times before. And there is other verse in Surah Al-Isra, قل لو كان معه آلهة كما يقولون إذا لابتغوا إلى ذي العرش سبيلا. Okay, if there has been other gods like you say, what stops them from trying to get to the throne and kind of like defeat all others and become the ruler, become the supreme? This is your mind that making you assume that this cannot happen. Okay, this is your imagination. The reality says, okay, that this is a possibility. So why it's not happening? You got to give us the evidence why this is not happening. So what are, another type of people? The pantheism or the panentheism, which is basically وحدة الوجود, the arguments that God exists everywhere. God is in everything. He is in all the molecules, the atoms, all the matter, all the physical quantities that's around us. Okay, and a Muslim would argue for that with the something called the contingency argument. Okay, and I have used this argument last weekend with one of the people who came to the table and spoke with us, and I believe it kind of maybe made sense to him. It's a long argument. I'm not going to be explaining it all here, but this was basically the argument of Ibn Sina or Avicenna, like this is how they describe him in the books of the Western literature. But Ibn Sina, he basically was the one who came with these arguments called the contingency argument. And it basically says that, and this is in summary, maybe if it doesn't make sense to you by this, summary, that's fine. We probably will have to make maybe another one session to talk about this argument, because this is one of the arguments. Intelligent design, which we spoke about in the beginning, it's one of the arguments to prove that there is God, but it's not the only argument. There are multiple other arguments. Okay, and the contingency argument, it speaks precisely, okay, about the idea that this God, this creator, has to be outside space and time. It has to be outside. It has to be made from a different nature, different substance. The word made is incorrect, but you know what I mean. Like that creator, that supreme power cannot be within the existence. It has to be separate from it, okay, independent. So when we say there is logical necessity that if the universe has a creator and that creator is the uncaused cause, okay, he is the unmoved mover, he is the first and the last, he is one eternal and independent, and he's all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful, and all-merciful. This is basically the summary of the attributes of that God, if we're talking about to non-Muslim, and we want to be very like neutral in the language we are using, we could just agree on that there is an entity, and that entity has these attributes, these features. So that creator must be of a different essence than all existence, matter and energy. It can't be of the same essence. It has to be different, okay? And must be necessary and not contingent. What's the meaning of the word contingent? Contingent means possible. What is the meaning of a possible? Possible means it could have existed or it could have not, okay? So its existence is not necessary. The world, if I am a contingent thing, I am a contingent existence. If I did not exist, the universe would have existed without me. So my existence is not necessary for this world or this universe to exist. Okay, therefore I am contingent. I'm just a possible existence. Okay, so if all things around us are all possible, okay, this is a logical contradiction. This can be or philosophical contradiction. Just take it like this for now. Maybe we will, delve into it later. And you are welcome to go and read about it. It's basically the argument of Avicenna. It's heavy philosophical argument, but it's accessible. So we say that necessary existence, that daruri, is outside this set of contingent things. So if I am contingent, I am made of particles and atoms. All other things are made of particles and atoms. It's all the cell, the protein, and the amino acid is the smallest component, smallest element of all existences. So we are all made of the same things. So all things basically becomes, have that same definition. They are all possible. They are all contingent. They could have existed or they could have not. Okay. So that creator must be outside of those all possible existences or contingent existences. Because if he was within them, okay, then he is basically one of them. So he will have the attributes of them. Okay. So the session will end in 10 minutes, guys. We will start it again as usual. So because if that creator exists within the contingent things, then he would have the same attributes like them, as we said. So he will be dependent, he will be changing, he will be imperfect. So that would be the Islamic argument against this position, okay, of pantheism and panentheism, which is, you will find it in ideologies like, for instance, Buddhism, okay, so the Buddhists, and Sikhism as well. Sikhism, the Sikhs, it's a very famous religion in India. They do believe in this, philosophical idea that God is in everyone, okay? And there are other, school of thoughts in Christianity and Islam that sort of like adopt this idea of pantheism. It's a famous one, but it's philosophically and logically impossible. And then we get the agnostic type. So the agnostic type would say that there can be a world without objective truth, but multiple truth, okay? And they say that reality is not observed, but rather constructed, okay? So they would say that there is nothing called reality outside me and you. Reality is something that we construct. We agree to say that this is real, but in itself, in its essence, intrinsically, it's not real. It's just that we give it the value of being real, It's a philosophical theories, because people have all sorts of different, philosophical ideologies and thoughts. And unless you can't have like some sort of, exposure to those philosophical thoughts, sometimes it's difficult to engage with people actively and positively. And they say, well, if there is a God, that God might have assigned different purpose to different groups or nations, So like all religions could be true or have some, sort of truth in it. So why there must be one only true religion? Like there can be multiple. Therefore, we just can, live together, be happy. We don't need to do da'wah. We don't need to engage with others. We don't need to call people to their religion. We can just be all, everyone has their own purpose that was, okay, given from that one God. That's fine. But everyone has a purpose, okay? So why would we need to talk and interact? It's like, let everyone live by their own values, and that's it. And this is, again, the position that we said is called relativism. How a Muslim would interact with this? A Muslim would interact with this saying, it is unintelligible to argue that the maker who made all existence and gave them purpose to allow life and created mankind and made them intellectually transcending above all other existences, above all other existence intellectually, and then made that human or mankind center of the universe, okay, that he didn't have an objective purpose in mind. And let me give you this example here. So imagine that someone designed a hospital, a building or structure of a hospital, okay? It would be very non-logical and non-reasonable that you assume that when that person, that designer was designing the hospital, okay, he in his mind intended for that hospital to be used for other purposes, okay? So this is all subjective purposes. It could have been built to be a shopping center. It could have been built to be a hotel or a university or a parliament house. This is exactly the same when someone say, well, the purposes could be different and everyone can interpret it their way. It is exactly like you saying that. I would say, I would look at the building, the hospital building, and when I look at it, I will know from its features that it actually indicates, okay, and gives the evidence that is what created for the purpose, okay, of housing the patients and treating them. Because if it was meant, if he did not have that in mind and he would open to be used as a shopping center, okay, none of that design indicates that, it can be used for a shopping center. Where is like the food court? Where is the cinema? Where is the shops? It's not designed to be that. You look at it and you can't say it is subjective. So all these things are subjective opinions. People have their own interpretations, but that can't be the case. It has, because there is a designer. That designer wanted to intend or made it to be serving the purpose of being a hospital. So it's kind of like the same analogy. When someone says God created humans, but he didn't have a purpose for them, and he gave purpose to everyone different than the other, or he let them to everyone define his own purpose. Okay? And that's how we say that this, like this position or this ideology is logically impossible. So since God has that one, objective purpose that he wanted to communicate to us, he does that through what? Through the messengers and the divine scripture, which is the religion. The last position is the Christianity, okay? When someone says like Christianity is the truth, Trinity is identity of God, original sin due to Adam's fault, salvation, Jesus is begotten Son of God, no heaven without believing in blood sacrifice and all of that. How would we as Muslims respond to that? We will say, well, when we examine the doctrine, okay, your doctrine, via epistemology, ilm al-ma'rifah, okay, we can only use rationality because we can't see God, and I can't go back in time 2,000 years or 1,400 years and see what happens there. So we only can accept reasoning and rationality, okay? And we proved that Trinity and the Christian doctrine through different, sessions we had does not make sense, okay? So you're welcome to go back and read all these, sessions we did about the Christian doctrine, the Trinity, and how did we prove that it doesn't make sense. But we say, even we accepted that this non-logical concept, okay, is the true identity of God. Even if we accepted you as a Christian saying this, okay, then we need to at least, check, examine the integrity, the character, the truthfulness of the main authors and influencers, okay? And we spoke about Paul and Augustine and Athanasius and all those who shaped that Christian doctrine. And we found that their biography is questionable, is doubtful. It raises many question marks, if not undermines their credibility overall and entirely. And once we prove that to them, we give them evidences to say that we don't believe that those people can be trusted to take from them the doctrine, okay, and the belief that shapes your life, okay. We move into the next step. We say, and you know what? Even if we kind of like ignore the fact that they are all like people with very bad reputation, and it's very obvious they had bad intentions and malicious intentions, and they were suffering from, they had pre-Christianity, they had an awful life. Even if we accept that, The Bible as itself as a book is, it can be objectively considered divine because we can prove that it is not preserved, and it has unknown authors, and it has multiple evidences that it is heavily altered and changed. So we know that the Bible itself does not claim that it's divine book. It's not like Surah Al-Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه. This book has no doubt. There's nothing like that in the Bible. There's even like the writers of the Bible they declare themselves and say I am this and this who wrote this book. It's other people believe that those people wrote these books. So it's always thought to be, believed to be, but there's no evidence that those people are actually the writers, the authors of the Bible. And as we said, and we will show today, that the Bible is self-contradictory. It's a book that contradicts itself, okay? And it actually contradicts with other external sources of epistemology or sources of al-ma'rifah, okay? And we will show that the Bible is a morally corrupt book, and it doesn't make any fulfilled prophecies in the future, okay? So all these is evidences we give to reject the Bible. Inshallah, today we will talk about the contradiction. Even I took a whole 40 minutes doing a recap of what happened or what we spoke about the last time, which I know I did spend a long time in that one, but I thought this can be like, kind of, we can have those slides as like, handbook, where we can always check those points if we want to talk about that kind of person, So, but stay tuned. The session will end in 1 minute, and we will get to the contradiction, and this is the new stuff which we haven't spoken about before. So we say, and even if we, ignored all of these things about the Bible, the Christian doctrine that you believe in is not supported by the text of the Bible. Even if I accepted that book to be true, what you believe in is not in the book, And the main two things that we argue here is that the Bible does not support the divinity of Jesus. The Bible does not clearly support or give evidence of the divinity of Jesus, that Jesus is God or Jesus has divine attributes. And also the Bible provides very ambiguous and open into interpretations, accounts about the crucifixion and resurrections. Everything in Christianity is based on these two incidents,